Happy Monday.
Folks on screen can see or not. But and should we pause, or do you think people can hear and see us?
Yeah, now they can hear you.
They can't.
So they didn't hear the first few minutes, but.
Okay, well, this is the important part anyway. All right, let's go to the next slide. So what I wanted to just quickly run through, this is not altogether different than what the committee saw on March 18th, but I did want to just highlight for you a couple of these items. Again, these are embedded in a resolution that the county council has adopted. So this is the voice of the county council. Certainly invite Mr. Livingston or others if you want to amplify any of this. So as you all know, you received a charge way back in 2012 from the county council relating to the penny that was approved by referendum in 2012. Where we are now is council is considering, has not made the decision, but is considering possibly adopting an ordinance that would call for an election on a new penny. So that'd be in the 2024 election cycle. So November 5th, 2024. So all the work we're doing now is to examine the possibility of that happening. And of course, there's a lot of things to be considered along the way. And so county council is asking the TPAC for its assistance. So I'll just point you to a couple of things. In section 1, the council is asking the TPAC to advise on the transportation needs that you're going to hear about today. And there'll be other meetings where you hear about those. But that's what Mr. Beatty is here today to talk about, the needs assessment that his group has performed. And then also to assist the county in looking at those needs, making sure that that's a comprehensive list, and then going through the very important process of distilling the long list of needs into an actionable list of projects that can then be broken up into a couple of different categories that would be on the referendum ballot. So we go from needs, projects, to categories. I've just greatly simplified that, Mr. Chair, because there's a lot of work to get us there. But so you'll see there in section 1 that they have asked for assistance in addressing the needs, the principles to be applied to determine and execute the projects. You'll hear me use the term principles a lot. What we've learned, if anything, we've learned a lot as we've gone through the 2012 penny. But one of the things we've learned is this is a dynamic situation. In other words, no matter what we come up with today, no matter what you see today from Mr. Beatty, there are going to be things that we've not yet thought about. There'll be needs that we don't yet know about. Now, this is a changing and ever-changing environment in which we find ourselves. And so what we want to do at the end of this process is we want to have a living, breathing document that we call the Projects and Principles document. And what that would be is recommendations from this committee, recommendations from the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee to council, adopted by council, that sort of provide a set of priorities for how projects should be undertaken, how they should be prioritized. What are the things that should be really given greater weight to? And if and when we have a need to change the way projects are being addressed, what are some of the guiding principles for how those changes would be made? Because we know that inevitably there'll be change as we move forward with this. And as you'll see from Mr. Beatty, we've got a 15-year-ish plan to be considered. And we may even go longer than that. And of course, we all know things will change in that time frame. So assistance with getting through that process is one item. The second item that the county has asked TPAC to do is to meet as needed. Y'all, this is a special called meeting today, and we acknowledge that. We appreciate that. There will be probably occasion to have other special call meetings. Mr. Black and I and my colleague Emily Luther have talked through the schedule, which I'm also going to show the committee one more time. So that's going to be important. We're asking that the TPAC really interface with the county council's Transportation Ad Hoc Committee. Mr. Livingston is on that committee and is here today as a representative of that committee. We're asking that the deliberations of the TPAC have a fixed endpoint, and that to the extent you're able to make a report and make some recommendations, that you do so by June 17th, because the TPAC meets on June 18th. And at that point, we'd ask that you all be prepared to dialogue over your report. Finally, and I think this has been addressed, Mr. Black, but I just would want to make sure, we know there were some vacancies on the committee. I think you were looking for a couple of appointments. Is my understanding you needed an appointment from City of Columbia and the town of Arcadia Lakes. Do I have that right?
2 for the City of Columbia, 1 for Arcadia Lakes, and 1 for Eastover. So there's actually 4 open.
And is that process sort of still ongoing, trying to get those? Okay. So there's been a suggestion that if we can't get those folks to take action or to give you some appointments by April 5th, which is the end of this week, then the council could also then assist with the making of appointments. We'll just stay in touch about that. See how that's going. Okay, so that is the summary of what the council is asking the TPAC to do. It's in writing. It's been voted on in the public meeting. If we can now just flip the page. I want to just, if I can, maybe more visualize the process that we're going through. This long list of needs that you're going to hear about in just a little while from Mr. Beatty, that's where we're starting. We've got to distill that into a list of actionable items. We've got to actually figure out, are we going to do that whole list? What order are we going to try to attempt to do them in? What principles are we going to apply to get us to an actionable list? And then ultimately, we're going to need those to be separated into categories that could actually appear on the referendum ballot. I'm going to talk more about categories in just a minute, if you don't mind flipping the slide. So on this slide, this is the exact same slide, but it indicates the role of the TPAC over on the far left and the Transportation Advisory Committee, or the TOC, on the far right. So what is council asking you to do? They're asking you to help with this middle portion, with this distillation of the projects and principles. And that's exactly what we just talked about in that resolution. You'll see that both the Transportation Advisory Committee and the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee are the two main advice and council bodies that the county council is calling on for assistance in this process. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. When we talk about project principles, I just want to make clear that these are intended to be a filter. They're intended to be guidelines for how and where the proceeds of the next transportation penny will be spent, and how they'll be used to fund the county's transportation needs. So if you'll think about it with me that way as a filter, so you're taking all these needs and you're filtering them against a set of principles. What do principles look like? What are we talking about? Let's go to the next slide. So these are examples. These are by no means intended to be a limitation on principles, but these are the kinds of things we would ask this committee to think about, and more importantly, to make suggestions about other principles that you may have in mind. But here's some examples. One, how do we prioritize projects that are remaining from the current pennies project list? We know that there are projects that folks are still waiting on. Some of those are already planned to be done. Some of those had to be kind of moved down the list for various reasons. How are we going to address those? So that's one project principle that needs to be established. Next is, how are we going to divide the penny among the project categories? There's 3 project categories we'll talk about in just a minute, and I discussed with you earlier today, Mr. Black. But at some point, we have to make a decision and a recommendation about whatever we're going to collect with the new penny, how is it going to be spent across those categories? What are the major factors that need to be considered? Are we talking about the needs of a community, safety, access? How should they be prioritized? And how do we equitably distribute the penny around the county? And finally, what portion of the penny, and this is a new element because we didn't do this with the 2012 penny, what portion of it should be reserved for things we don't know about yet, for needs that we haven't yet identified? What we found in other counties is they're taking some portion of the penny and reserving it for projects that occur because of future growth that hasn't yet happened, or God forbid there be a weather event or a flooding event or something that requires us to redirect transportation penny funds into a need that we don't yet know about. So that's another element of this. How much should we set aside? How much should be reserved to make sure we have money for future needs? The next slide just talks.
One thing that I mentioned that slide,
yes, sir.
you mentioned later too, is these questions about whether you're going to bonding the funds and how you going to do those.
That's a great question, right? So we're going to do pay as you go, or we're going to do bonding. We've done bonding with the current penny. There's going to be, I think, on at least a suggestion to the county council that we ought to at least reserve the ability to bond for these projects. Bonding meaning that we borrow money up front so that we can then get going with the projects versus waiting for penny collections. These are, if you go to the next one, these are the 3 categories that county council has been talking about in terms of how they want to prioritize or how they want to categorize projects. Community investment projects, which we'll define here in just a minute, county advancement projects, and then of course comment enhancement projects. Just like the last penny, it is considered, I'm glad Mr. Pearl is here, it's considered that comment related projects would also be a part of this penny. I'm almost done, Mr. Chair. Just want to give you a little more detail on each of the project categories. Community investment projects are projects that target the integrity, safety, reliability, and sustainability of transportation infrastructure in local communities that impact the day-to-day lives of our citizens. So we're talking about more local roads, county roads, pedestrian friendly improvements, sidewalks, bikeways, etc. Community improvement projects being maybe things, if you want to think about it, that are closer to home. We'll turn the page. County advancement project, if you want to think about those. County advancement projects, I'm going to pass that down to that gentleman, are bigger projects that will have countywide impact, that are preparing the county to grow, to attract further investment, to deal with development that may yet be coming. So we're talking about projects that include new construction and improvement to major roadways, intersections, and commuting corridors. So countywide kinds of projects. Those are county advancement projects. And then I think it goes without saying, the common enhancement projects are projects that target the operation and expansion of the mass transit system that is operated by the CMRTA, that is known as the COMET. These projects include operational sustainability, establishment of new routes, new construction and improvements to enhance rider safety and comfort, and acquisition of new buses and other modes of transportation. So that's that broad category of projects. And finally, I just want to point out what we call the roadmap. This roadmap has been adopted by the county council. Mr. Black and other members of the committee, everything you see in yellow is a TPAC related item. So everything that's in yellow is a TPAC related item. Everything in orange is a council related item. And everything in green is a transportation ad hoc committee item. So you'll see today, we're right dead in the middle of the first row. We're in a special called meeting of the TPAC. This roadmap is effectively a reflection of all of the public meetings that we anticipate will occur between now and a critical date, which is July 16th. That's the date at which we anticipate, subject to council approval, that they'll adopt a penny ordinance. You'll see there are work sessions here. You'll see there are council meetings here. You'll see there are transportation ad hoc committee meetings here, and you are invited to all of them. These are all public meetings, and your input is welcome, and your presence is welcome at the meetings. I'll just point out, Mr. Black, this would be the last thing I would provide to the committee. The next yellow item on this list is an April 5th meeting of the TPAC, which is a regularly scheduled meeting. And then we have, if you'll note that we've got a couple of special call meetings in May, both of the TPAC and the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee. You'll note that each time the TPAC meets, the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee has another meeting coming right behind it. That's intentional. That way that what this committee is doing in its meetings can be directly reported to the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee meeting at its next meeting, and so that we can begin building all the conversations building together. So unless anybody has any questions, Mr. Black, I'm going to stop. Glad to answer any questions. I wanted to give this committee a big picture view about why you're being asked to meet and talk about the new penny, about what the county council is asking me to do, and the timeline on which we're trying to achieve it. Glad to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I mean, I think it was a very thorough presentation. And I will note that earlier today, I did distribute the 2024 meeting schedule update. It added today's meeting, May 6th meeting, and June 3rd meeting to our already established meeting schedule. So we have incorporated those recommended changes from council.
Thank you.
Anybody have any more questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. We will now move down to Miss Susan O'Kane.
Thank you.
Public application.
Are you driving the ship? You want me to?
Let me get this room to share. Oh, this is not the right one.
Not the right one. That is me, so we just need to go to the slideshow.
Oh,
Hey, let me see,
you better PIO.
from beginning. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Susan O'Kane, and I'm the Director of Communications here at Richland County. I think that many of you in this room have already seen this presentation, but Director Baloney and I thought it was important that as you all are meeting today, that We're going to share some of our education information that we will be using in the communities moving forward, just so that you all are familiar with what we're doing. And of course, if you have any questions or any feedback, we're certainly happy to listen and answer questions as best we can. But again, the reason for developing this material is to aid us in our efforts to be out in the community and educate the community about the current transportation penny and what it has done over the last what is it? How many years? A lot. Since 2012. Now keep in mind something that came up the other day when we were meeting. Some of you are part of that conversation. Is a question that came up was, why are we looking at a 10-year analysis? And the reason behind that, and then of course, Director Maloney, if you want to chime in, please do so. This is the information that we have. So we projects come to fruition, and then it does take a little while for us to gather information after those projects have been up and running for a while. As we move through the coming months and as we continue the education process of the current transportation penny, our efforts will not stop. Regardless of what council decides to do, we will continue to promote the benefits of the transportation penny to the communities in which we serve. So as you see here, after residents invested in the transportation penny in 2012, we've been on a roll. What we're really focusing on, one of the biggest elements of this is the quality of life. We're looking at quality of life. We're looking at enhancing safety, economic growth, mobility, and again, just going back to the overall quality of life. I need to get back to the other slide. How do you do that? There we go. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I got it. I'm not used to working on the big screen here. So going back to the quality of life, the penny builds a stronger, safer, more vibrant Richland County and the neighborhoods within it. Because of the current transportation penny, we have access to workplaces, better access to workplaces, local businesses, and other amenities. We have increased walkability to green spaces, entertainment, and local businesses. We also have new intersections and miles of new sidewalks, which contribute to health and safety. Now we're looking at economic development and the impacts where economic development is concerned. And I think it's important to note that as we're talking with residents and local businesses, that while what we're going to see in this presentation is that there have been a lot of direct impacts involving the transportation penny, there have also been some indirect impacts that the communities can be proud and thankful of. Direct impacts, we have nearly 20,000 new jobs, nearly 4,000 new businesses, over 4.7 billion in investments, a 60% decrease in unemployment, and 2.5 million new annual visitors. The penny has been responsible for significant economic investment deals, including more than $1 billion in total investments and 1,100 new jobs through 5 projects. Why is this repeating?
It's worth repeating.
It is. All right. Thank you, Director Maloney. Of 1 billion from the penny that was utilized, 24 million was allocated to support the extension of Shop Road, which by proxy aided in several other projects in the area. 24 million to support the extension of Shop Road. Projects included Mark Anthony Brewing, City Routes, and Service Solutions. So here we move into safety and accessibility. Everyone can understand the importance of having safer and better roads as it leads to fewer accidents, smoother commutes, and avoids wear and tear to vehicles. Here is a current summary of how the penny has contributed to these improvements. Click it. 120 plus miles of roads resurfaced. Go back. I think you have to do it again. 20 plus, not, okay. 500 plus roadways, bikeways, and greenways completed. 11 new intersections constructed. And 85 dirt roads paved. Projects like those have translated into remarkable improvements, and now we have a couple of examples. And what I do want to mention is since the last time this presentation was given, Director Maloney has provided the communications staff with some additional information for us to share as part of examples of how the transportation penny is directly impacting. So one example is the Clemson Road widening, where there has been a 25% reduction in reported accidents and an expected 40% less wait time at each penny improved intersection. Another example, North Springs Road at Harrington Road, where recent statistics show a 40% reduction in all accidents and a drop of over 60% in vehicle rear end accidents. So now we want to move into the Comet and the importance of the penny as it relates to the Comet. With 1/3 of the penny, Richland residents have invested in a modern, efficient, and broad-reaching public transportation system to enhance mobility for everyone in the county. Look how far 1/3 of the penny has carried us. Miles traveled has increased 41%. You have to hit it again. No one gets tired of the buses moving across. From nearly 1.7 million in 2012 to nearly 2.4 million in 2021. And we are going to be speeding up these transitions as well. For those who are presenting this live. So. Look at it again. 29 new routes have been added to connect more people to their destination. Go ahead. Click it again. 0 bus shelters in 2012. Now there are 160 bus shelters plus and 114 additional benches since 2012. Go ahead. Go ahead. And the Comet has added 29 buses to its fleet.
Some of these are automated.
Some of them, sorry, you can get used to it. And then passenger ridership has doubled from 1.4 million in 2012 to 2.8 million in 2021. Okay, to the next slide. Another important slide to point out as we're speaking in the community is about the financial management of the Comet and the consistency in being recognized for its financial management. We also will be adding some additional information as it relates to Richland County as a whole, where the transportation penny is concerned. So you will be able to see that in the updated presentation that we have here very soon. Go ahead. The citizens of Richland County are receiving an even greater value for their investment because about $1 billion in revenue, generated about $1 billion in revenue. 60% which is generated from within Richland County and 40% which is generated from outside of Richland County. Go ahead. Go ahead. To date, the penny has collected $710 million, which was leveraged by an additional 10% through federal grants, matching funding, and other sources. with a total value of $67 million. And that's where our slideshow or our presentation as it stands now ends. Again, we are adding some additional information to this presentation. And you can expect that it will be ever evolving as we do receive new statistics from Director Maloney and his team. And as we are going out into the public and our communities and engaging with residents about the penny's importance. With that said, I will take any questions anyone or feedback anyone might have.
How soon will this presentation be made available to like members of TPAC that are actually gonna be going out to community meetings and stuff like that?
ASAP. So we actually had a call with our consultant today. And they are in the process of making those updates. We already do have Director Maloney scheduled for some community meetings. So we will have this information available to you all, I would say probably within the week. And then also we are going to be adding this information to our Richland Penny website. So users have access to request a speaker. This will be in a video format. So you won't just see the slides going through. There will be some additional context to it. So it should be pretty explanatory. But as soon as that information is available, we will certainly share it with you. And any updates that may come along as we navigate through the weeks.
Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Well, thank you, Ms. O'Kane.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Mr. David Beatty with Stantec.
You don't mind, I'll join the table, so I'm not behind anyone's back. That's all right. Good afternoon, glad to be with you. My portion can be really as short as you would like it to be. Stantec was engaged to assist the county really with doing two high-level things: compiling a list of projects and then preparing an estimate of those projects. So we compiled the list really through two manners. We reached out to county staff led by Mr. Maloney, and we also reached out to the municipalities within Richland County. And we asked them for their input, their existing and their desired projects. Then we went out into the community and we had 11 individual public meetings in each of the 11 council districts. And we presented to the public the projects that we had gathered from the county and from the municipalities that provided projects. So we presented a map unique to each district and then an overall county-wide map. So we had 11 of these public meetings in each district over the course of about 7 or 8 weeks in January to late February timeframe. And at those meetings, we gathered additional input from the public. Either they told us verbally and we took notes and we recorded our notes, or we gave them comment sheets. And so the public would sit down at times at this meeting and write a comment, or they would take them home and email us their comments later. We even had a few people come to the meetings with their comments already prepared for us. And so that's how we compiled the list of projects. And I use the word compile. We did not create the list of projects. And we vetted the input that we received from the public. If it was a broad generalization, then we would include it in a sidewalk category. But the list that you see on the screen is a compiled list from the different groups and the public. And then what we did is we went through and we assigned an estimate to construct that project in today's dollars. So we looked at recent projects nationally, statewide, and within Richland County to develop our best sample cost per project, per widening, per feet of sidewalk, or per intersection. And what we did is said, okay, it costs this much per mile to widen the road. Well, there's more costs associated with developing a project other than just hard construction. You have to design it. You have to buy the right of way. you have to move the utilities, and then you have to manage it during construction. So what we did is we took the base price of construction, and then we increased it certain percentages for those 4 categories to inflate the price to cover all of the expenses associated with development of project. Now, of interest, with the sidewalk, the resurfacing, which is repaving county roads, and then paving dirt roads, we just applied a lump sum amount. The total of those 3 was 250 million. That could be more, that could be less. That's a starting point for discussion. So we compiled all of these project lists based on the input we received, and the total dollar value comes up to be about $2.1 million. And like every
Million or billion?
billion, thank you.
Okay.
Very significant difference, thank you. And like with every estimate, it's really only good the day that it's done. If projects are added or removed or changed, then the estimate is going to change. You know, it's all dependent on the price of oil. So this estimate based on these projects is about $2.1 billion. It's also important to note that these are in present day dollars. So it's not possible to go out and construct $2 billion worth of projects in 1 year. So you have to keep that in mind. This cost estimate is only in 2024 dollars. I'll kind of leave it at that. We can, I will note of the 11 public meetings, we had about 225 attendees. And then we had over 300 comments. So 225 attendees, 300 comments. Every attendee sign-in sheet, every comment has been made available to the county. So all of the information has been made available to the county for future reference. So with that, I'll open it to any questions or comments on the process or how we got to where we are today.
I mean, before I point out that I need to make before I ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Please keep in mind now, these are not transportation penny project. This is not a proposed penny project, the list here. These are just some perceived needs throughout the county. And I think that distinction is very important because someone will leave and say, we got a list of penny projects. These are not penny projects. That's why it doesn't say penny up there. It says transportation needs assessment. It's really important for that distinction to occur because I think what would happen is if you don't, you can have individuals saying they've already decided what the project's going to be. And that's really important for me, for folks to understand that these are needs assessment and there may be some other needs assessed in the process, but these are not penny projects that we're looking for on the fence. Okay.
If I can expand on the point Mr. Livingston brought up, we listed the projects that we heard. I've not offered an opinion. I've not been asked my opinion on whether these are good, bad, high priority, low priority. These are the projects that we heard from the community. So one person may have wanted a particular highway widened. We included that in the list. So again, just because it is a recording of what we have heard, it is not an endorsement of any projects.
On the top line, where it's got Central Midlands Council of Governments headline, is that, can you break that down? Is the items under there, was that provided by them or, because I'm seeing like breakdowns on here and just so we're all clear where that information came from.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to expand on that. So the Central Midlands Council of Government is a planning body represented by elected officials, the public, and Central Midlands COG develops a long-range transportation plan. And it's about a 20-year plan, and it covers 4 counties in the Midlands, but specifically including Richland County. And their plan identifies major projects beyond 2045. So what we did is we took their published long-range transportation plan, and they have a group of highway widenings, and we only listed what's in Richland County. So their list includes all four, but we only showed what's in Richland County. So they have a list of widenings that go through 2045. And that's what they call their funded list through their normal appropriations from the federal government and the state DOT. That's what the Central Midlands plans to see widened between now and 2045. And that's how the DOT identifies projects. So we listed the highway widenings that Central Midlands has planned through 2045. Then we went down to their intersections. Now they list a large group of intersections and they go beyond 2045. They don't specifically give a date. So we listed those planned projects, which are identified as intersections. Then the next group that Central Midlands COG has are bikeways. And they've got their bikeways, they've got 75 or 100 bikeway locations, but they're ranked high, medium, and low. And the high total 25 bikeways. So that's how we developed the list from the Central Midlands Council of Government. It's an existing list that multiple representatives and even county council has spots on the Central Midlands Executive Board. So there is representation by Richland County on the COG. And then there were a couple of remaining Richland Penny projects that we included that the funds could be used to complete the termini. They had been shortened at one time due to funding. There was the categories of dirt road paving, resurfacing, and sidewalks. And then projects were provided by the town of Blythewood, Irmo, the city of Columbia, and the city of Forest Acres. And then the following group was what we received from public input.
Let me just quick smart so be clear about the Secretary of the Council of Government. That's whole business. But we have at least about 8 members on that committee that consists of county council members and citizens that we appoint. And all these things on that plan is something that whole body votes on and approve and adopt on a regular basis. So it's not something that Central Midlands has done, that the county doesn't know about or whatever. It's because of the big picture of the Midlands, because when you look at a road widening, that's going to affect the whole Midlands, depending on where it is and so forth. So the idea is not that you're just taking what Central Midlands is given, you're part of that process too. Just want you to know that, make that clear.
Thank you.
Mr. Beatty, what's the largest category? I see a lot of intersections. Is that the largest or?
I'm not 100% certain. By number, we included a flat 25 bikeways from Central Midlands. Your intersections are probably the greatest number of projects. But then your widenings are probably your highest cost of projects. And then your categories, we're currently showing 100 million for resurfacing. But now that would be allocated to multiple smaller individual roads.
Now, Mr. Bailey, how is your areas determined? Because I see, certain areas like town of Ernos, Columbia, town of Blythewood. How is those areas determined or selected to go out and do the needs assessment?
Well, we reached out, we contacted each of the municipalities in Richland County. And these were the projects that were provided to us by those. So such the town of Eastover did not provide us any projects. And then Central Midlands being a multi-county is where we went to them. And then that's why we had a public meeting in each of the 11 districts.
On the public input portion, out of the 11 meetings, I'm assuming that the 35 selection points that are in the report here, that was mainly all that came out of the public input.
Some of the, yes,
Okay,
and some of these were repeated. So multiple people may have identified the first one. We need to widen Highway 76 from Broad River to Highway 6. We did have multiple people comment on that.
okay,
So My list is not weighted towards number of comments. So that would be something that would be in the backup data. If you were so inclined, where you could read all of the comments that came in from District 1.
On the citywide, the municipalities, is there? Well, I'm gonna ask this, it was brought up online, but the city of Eastover and Arcadia Lakes, they were they contacted or reach out to, and did they just not provide any suggestions, recommendations, or wishes that they would like, or?
Yes to both. They were contacted at least twice. Okay. And did not provide any projects.
Okay.
Okay.
Going back to my question, Mr. Beatty, on the public input part. I attended the District 7 meeting. And I myself, along with several other people, completed there was quite a few comments, suggestions made. So that's why I guess I'm asking, are these the sum total of all that was gleaned out of each meeting?
Every comment that was received was not put on this needs assessment.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
Now, the reason why is some of them were not necessarily applicable.
okay,
You know, one comment may be, and we did receive this comment, repave all the roads in the county. Or all the signals need to be retimed countywide. I could not quantify that in the list specifically. So every comment is summarized and every comment is documented, but every comment did not get included in the needs assessment due to applicability.
Some of them may have been programmatic, right?
Mhm.
A lot of resurfacing came in. You were in District
7
7.
yeah.
So we looked at that and that wasn't a common comment. And it may have been just our original, we'll call it estimate, saying that's gonna take $100 million for this many years
Right.
to do. So it was a common comment to resurface roads, but that's in a program.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. We did get quite a few individual comments, repave Smith Road, resurface Jones Road. We did get quite a specific ones, but that's where we group them under the category.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Do you have a little bit more explanation on the assembly rail separation for the city of Columbia? I see it's down as 300 million. And if that seems to be a lot of feedback that I have received in the various meetings that I've been to, because they seem like, well, why is the city of Columbia getting everything? And even online, people are commenting, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, the city's getting it, the city's getting it, the city benefits the most, but it's.
Well, specifically, the Assembly Street Railroad project has been identified probably for 40 years. Back when a lot of the rail going through Columbia was put in the ditch, going underneath Gervais Street and under Lady Street. So the Assembly Street project's been around for a long, long time. It's just a cost of such magnitude that it's not been able to be funded to date. And the cost is so large, as you would either have to take Assembly Street over the railroad or take Assembly Street under the railroad. And at this point, I don't know that there's been a preliminary design to tell you which one would be more effective. I don't know that. But that has been the cost that's been identified by the city of Columbia. And we carried forward their cost estimates into this needs assessment.
Gotcha.
And what is the process to add additional projects or requests to the needs assessment list?
Well, when we went to the public, we requested that comments be provided by March 8th. And that was a date that we gave from the beginning through the end of the public process. But it's my understanding that comments are still able to be received. And at this body's direction and the ad hoc committee and council, comments can continue to be received. I'll defer to county staff if that's
what,
that's true.
Any other questions for clarifications or anything? Mr. Muller?
And this list is, had gone in and been reviewed by council at their first working session. And in that they gave us certain things that they wanted to see in this list that will be updated to them. And then we'll be bringing that back. Mostly related to, penny projects from the 2012 referendum, getting that complete.
So this list here, this is essentially only geared towards the 2024 possible referendum, correct?
In my view, it's not necessarily tied to the 2024 referendum. It's a needs assessment. And so the 2024 potential penny is an avenue to fund these needs.
I got you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I might just expand on that a little bit, that's exactly the conversation we had with the county council. What we suggested, as Mr. Livingston and others can attest, is that the needs are the needs, and the county and leadership undertook the needs assessment really independent of penny. As you can tell, the needs are substantial. And so were we to start to look for funding mechanisms to address the needs, you'd run out of options pretty quickly unless you had a new large funding mechanism. And the new large funding mechanism that currently is on the table, the one that would be, I think, most within county's reach would be another penny.
You know, in order for me to say that since of the county, we need a new penny, I need to be able to say, we got a whole lot of needs. And here they are.
Right.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
One item that I failed to mention in this needs assessment, it does not include any comment related needs. So this 2.1 billion in this needs assessment is independent of any comment needs that have been addressed or will be addressed.
So is that this 2.1 billion, does that not include the potential third of what would be earmarked for the comment, or would this be 2/3 amount? This 2.1 billion potentially is 2/3 an amount of the overall, and there's still like a 1/3 portion that would be earmarked for the comment. Does that make sense?
Roughly speaking, the answer to your question is yes. So this list of 2.1 billion in road related projects does not include comment projects or expenses. And so that amount is to be determined. So I don't know if 2 billion is 2/3 or I don't know what it may be.
You're right, but there's no decision about what percentage. We need to get a better understanding of what the comment needs are and so forth. So there have not been any decision about what the percent are and so forth.
So at this point, it's not necessarily that the comment is going to get 1/3 of a future possible penny.
That has not been decided what like.
I got you.
Rather than based on the council needs.
Has comment put together anything?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
we have, and that's been sent to Councilman Walker. He has that, and then I'll provide that to Mr. Beatty tomorrow.
Okay, and is that something that will still come back through TPAC or?
Okay, cause that, when we start talking about numbers and dollars, percent and so forth, we want your feedback too.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Beatty?
Just one, the cost estimates for the full cost of the project, regardless of whether it might be broken up between local municipalities, state or utilities, okay, that's the full cost of the problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And keep in mind too now, you think about the last penny you know, actually the cost of the project that we were looking at was twice that amount. So it's not unusual to have this high number or whatever now, you know, without even including cover right now, whatever, because you know, if you consider from the last time, you know, as I said, we were looking at, you know, a need of over 4 million or something, you know, if we're gonna do everything everybody wanted to count.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Mr. Maloney reminded me that I could expand a little bit on Stantec's next step.
Okay.
So at some point, when this body and other bodies start making decisions, this list of projects will change. I don't know how it will change, but it will change through this process. And once I'm given direction on this is the number of years, this is the total dollar amount, these are the projects, then I'll revise the list accordingly. If I'm directed that it includes 25, it'll include 25. But then what I'll do is I'll take the 2024 cost estimate and I will grow that over so many years, whether it's 12, 15, or 20 to be determined. And then most likely the current cost of construction inflation that our industry is using to project is about 3% growth. So a project that costs $100 today is going to cost $103 next year and $106 the following year, et cetera. So once I'm directed on how much money and how many projects, I'll revise the list. And if it's a 15-year plan, I'll work with Director Maloney and put together a potential plan over those 15 years, spending the money per year and getting X projects developed over those years. But until I'm directed, I don't know which projects and how much money, and there's a lot of details that are being worked out as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any more questions for Mr. B? Yes, sir.
Chairman Black, thank you. Also in your handout provided by David and his organization, kind of further down, I think it was you know, you got a lot of details about the schedule here, but these are like your synopsis of each district meeting to give you highlights of what happened in each district, which is a level above all the comments that you have if anybody wanted them, but and we can post those on our county website so all the comments can be read. And then, you know, are those with names and?
They do not specify the person who made the comment for
Okay.
confidentiality.
Right. So we can put those on our website, and then this is a nice view of each district meeting and a lot of information they gathered in the summary, I think, of those meetings.
And I think that's gonna be important because for people to see this, because it's like, oh, well, my district, it's only got a couple things on there. But, and then to be able to show the data from that district meeting of only 6 people showed up. So, I mean, I was going through that earlier today, and I think it's not gonna shut the naysayers up, but, you know, at least the data is there to show, you know, you reached out, you held these different meetings, you sought the input, and it just wasn't provided.
And keep in mind, there'll still be more communication with various communities and folks interested in getting feedback and so forth. There's nothing down here at all, no even close to it.
Anybody else? All right, we will go to the project review discussion.
I think you've been having it.
Oh, okay. Like, next. So for us, at this point, then. We need to start looking at this needs assessment. And as a committee. And start preliminarily coming up with a breakdown of the categories and priorities in each category. And Mr. Livingston or Councilman Livingston, you're kind of the OG on this because you were around for the last one. It started in 2012, so. What? Is there any guidance or suggestions or recommendations that would help us begin this process rather than us just like, okay, well, how about this one? And I think this one and this one. I mean, how?
I'd worry more about just getting as much information as we can. If I was a member of the committee, making sure I have all the questions answered, over the next week or two about the various projects and kind of question I have about those. Or something someone might say to you, well, what about so and so? You can ask that question or say, how do I get, is that something to get on a list for consideration, that kind of thing. Just start looking at it, from that perspective. I think it's more important. And then council we'll start talking about categories and so forth. We'll send that to you and say, give us some feedback. What do you think about these? You have any suggestion about how we do this different and so forth. So that's really why it's tied in with ad hoc committee too. So we'll be channeling stuff to you all from the committee too.
That's good. So these projects that are listed on here, if the committee, do you have like additional information on each one of these projects that could be made available to us? Or if we have questions about specific things, we need to submit that, or? I'm not exactly sure that should be directed to.
And also too, before we get too deep into the projects too, is we're gonna look at some big pictures. In other words, as a council, we want to talk about, first of all, what are the categories we want to look at this time? Are they the same of the categories? It's the issue. Then we want to talk about how much for each category and that kind of thing. So we'll be talking about those kind of things before we dig into the details of each individual project. But you'll be getting that information quickly as we move on with it, though, like I said.
Okay.
Just to characterize, that's a good question. What's a description of the projects? And I don't know if COG has anything more on their list. Question mark on my mind is which of these projects are they gonna build in the next 5 or 10 years that they know they're gonna build in the COG, already funded, ready to lined up, versus what's out there. It's important if you decide it's important that they're not going to fund. So the difference between those two on those projects, I think everything else coming from local communities and the public, it does need to be defined what widening means. I think
I can shed a little bit there. So any widening on this list is represented from going from 2 lanes to 5 lanes. So a 2-lane road has 1 lane in each direction. And a 5-lane road has 2 lanes in each direction, plus a middle turn lane. So all these widenings are going from 2 to 5 lanes. Then some of the projects are self-explanatory. The undergrounding is just burying the overhead utility lines. Traffic signal upgrades, improving the red lights. What you probably could not tell is the intersections. If you wanted to look at the particular intersection, what I would recommend is you go to Google Earth, you go to the intersection. It's either going to be a 4-legged intersection or it's going to be a 3-legged intersection. So if it's a 4-legged intersection, we would just add turn lanes. If it's a 3-legged intersection, it may or may not be a roundabout or just have additional turn lanes added. So you could just go to Google Earth and look at each intersection. Either it's 4 legs or 3 legs. The widenings are 2 to 5. The sidewalks are mostly right up next to the pavement. Sometimes you have a grass buffer. And then any of the special projects, we identified special as being like a brand new road. So up in Blythewood, they were looking for the Creech Road extension would be a brand new road. So there's nothing to widen, it's on a new location. And then the bikeways are typically an additional 4 feet of pavement on either side, or it could be a 10-foot path on one side. Those are more broad generalization of what a bikeway could be.
Could you clarify when you said brand new road, the Creech Road that you use as an example, does that mean it went from dirt road to paving, or is it just doesn't exist in there and you would cut this new road that name Creech, your name Creech Road?
It does not exist.
Okay.
You would create a brand new road. So today Creech Road does T at dead ends. And it's been identified that we could punch through and extend Creech and tie around. So that would be what I call a new location road.
Is it a private road that you would be identifying as a new road to place in the county system?
It would be a new road to be placed in the county system.
If this is from Blythewood Road, where it ends just behind that to Main Street,
Yes.
we're gonna do that. That's gonna be a county road. So that's already in the current referendum under Blythewood area improvements. But I'm not sure what the location there with the court they mentioned. Fire Tower Court, that might be something else, I don't know.
I think it's even taking the current planned Creech Road extension and extending it further.
Okay,
And so that was the comment that we received.
perfect.
All right, we got a question, from online. So we now have a potential list of projects, but do we have the principles we're supposed to use to prioritize adds or substitute projects? They keep seeing reference to principles, but they're not clear on what they are at this point. If that was in Gray's presentation, she might have missed it. But
You and me.
Good.
Yeah, it was in my presentation, and the whole point of where we are now to where we're going is to get a suggestion on principles from this committee and from the ad hoc committee that would then roll forward to county council. In fact, it is anticipated that the transportation ad hoc committee would present a list of projects and principles to be adopted by the county council. So to the extent this body believes there are certain guiding principles that should be applied as we look at this needs list, we want to hear that. We want to hear it, and we want that to be then melded into the conversation that transportation ad hoc is having about those principles. And those would be things that are important today, but also remember, we talked about the dynamic element of a plan like this, how it changes over time. So let's imagine for a minute that we go through a successful referendum and now it's 2027 and we're spending dollars, but things are happening in the community. What principles would you want to be applied then to re-examine how we've prioritized? In fact, you might suggest as one of the principles that there should be a regular look at the priority and the categorization of projects to ensure that they're still meeting the needs of the communities. So just a regular review, that alone could be a principle. That's less important as we sit here today, but it's extremely important as we move forward. So that's the kind of thing, Mr. Chair, we're talking about.
And that's something the committee can look at now. I mean, you don't have to wait, that's something, next week, wherever, you can just say, let's talk about some of these principles and what we think kind of help consider.
gotcha. Anybody have anything else? Well, I think, we got 2 weeks.
Excuse me.
Yes,
So the municipality that did not, were not included, like, Arcadia Lake and, the town of Arcadia Lake and, who was supposed to send the recommendation?
The process that we used was Stantec staff emailed and reached out to each municipality at least twice. And at times,
As in during the meeting at Trenum Library, or the mayor and town council. Is that who we're talking about?
At that district, I do know the mayor of the city of Forest Acres provided a list. But we did not receive any projects from Arcadia Lakes or Eastover.
Now, Mr. Slum, are you talking about the project list or the vacancies?
No, I'm talking about the project list.
Okay,
Was that supposed to be from the people that attended the Trenum Road? Or was it through the mayor of the town of Arcadia Lake or town council?
it would have been the municipalities.
Okay, so the mayor and town council, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's I know my name is not as representing town of Arcadia Lake. I'm listed at large, but when we have the meeting to discuss the existing recommendation, is it too late to add, or does that have to come from the municipality itself, not through the member of TPAC?
As we compiled the list, we included projects provided by both elected officials, municipal leaders, and the public. So the
Okay.
opportunity was, and it does exist, for additional projects to be provided.
I was at that meeting, and I even I talked to a lot of people there, and I guess a lot of people were talking about more about resurfacing. But I think the problem is most people didn't know if the road was a county road or a DOT road. So I don't know if that got included because of that or not. So when people came to it's number 6, I think the Trenum Library, Trenum Road Library. The people that I talked to were talking about some roads that were DOT roads and not necessarily county roads. Was there an explanation that what they were suggesting were not part of the county road resurfacing or project?
I believe in general, regardless of if it was city, county, or state, the suggestions and recommendations and the feedback from the public was accepted regardless of who.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it was just open. It wasn't specific to any specific municipality. It was just in general.
Okay, so if those municipality reach now, could that be included, or we missed the bus?
We're still taking comments, but let me explain again on the like if it was a resurfacing. We have a list that from the meetings of roads that were requested to be resurfaced, so it's in the raw comments. Some of those projects may be on our current penny resurfacing list. And so
Okay.
a lot of and that's the case. Others that are not are just categorically in that programmatic resurfacing item, which really doesn't specify those comments, because really, you know, there's just in Richland County maintained paved roads, there's over 650 miles of roads that will all need resurfacing at different dates. And so we can look at those roads as priorities, which we're doing right now, as far as if its condition is at a certain level and we're heard about it, we're looking at a big, $6 million project within our current transportation penny for this summer. And some of those are projects we did hear about on the, on the outreach. And just like was said before, the outreach was to find out what needs are out there. This is something that the current county funded as a project to do, in our anticipation, when it was more mature like it is now, and to find out what still outstanding needs there are, regardless of what the funding source to cover those needs is. So some of these comments are being covered by the current penny that we have, and some of them may not be able to be funded with it.
Okay, all right, that answered my question. Thanks a lot.
Anybody have anything else? Our next regularly scheduled TPAC meeting will be on April 15th. And for the record, I will add that on our meeting schedule, we have added a meeting for Monday, May 6th and Monday, June 3rd, in addition to our regular meetings on the third Monday. Unless anyone has any other questions, we can now adjourn. No, we don't have a point.
We look forward to the committee input and feedback.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank y'all. We'll see you on the 15th.